4.
Muy buenos días, muy buenas
Good
tardes.
morning, good afternoon, everybody. I give you a very warm welcome to all those who are joining today in this presentation of the Summit for Electoral Democracy. I also welcome representatives from electoral authorities, from the electoral organizations of different regions of the world, and organizations that promote democracy that accompany us and participate in this launch, as well as those who are following us remotely. As you all well know, democracy since for some years has been going through delicate moments. Through several decades of expansion in the world from the beginning of this century, particularly in the last 10 years, democracy has been questioned in terms of its capability to govern over the conditions of plurality and to improve the conditions of development of contemporary societies. During this time, in a growing number of countries, the structural problems have become more worsen, and the lack of solution for these problems generate discontent and unconformity with the governments coming from legal and free elections. The citizens lose interest in the elections because they think that their processes and needs instead of being solved, they grow bigger, or because the elected institutions represent more their party's interest than the general interest. Because of the seriousness of this case in matters of representation, according to a survey, 61.5% of the population trusts nothing or very little in parliaments, and 72% have that same level of minimum or null confidence in political parties. This situation has worsened with the progress of discourses and practices that offer effectiveness in the solution of some problems, but would have to pay the price of going back in democracy and undermining democracy that warranty the respect and warranty for the fundamental political rights of people. For instance, in its more recent report about the state of democracy in the world, IDEA International has said that since 2016 and for 5 consecutive years, the number of countries that go towards authoritarianism is 3 times bigger than those countries that are going towards democracy. In this period, while 7 countries have moved forward to democratic regimes, 20 countries have gone in the route of authoritarianism. Today, more than ever, it must be clear that no problem can be solved from the authoritarian logic. On the opposite, the problems of democracy can only be solved with more democracy. That is why today we are calling this democracy summit for electoral democracy, whose central role is the role of electoral institutions in their democracy practices. The summit is an alliance of international and authorities from different countries to drive a process of reflection about the problems faced by democratic regimes in current days. The objective is also to generate initiatives and actions in order to face the common challenges of our democracies. The activities of the Summit for Electoral Democracy will be launched throughout regional forums that will culminate in September with a global summit. It's a process that is trying to be multi-sectorial and multi-participation. We'll have representatives from all the institutions and groups interested in this: electoral institutions promoting human rights and democracy, parliamentaries, organizations from the civil society, intellectuals, journalists, and the academy in general. To fulfill the objectives of this process, the Europe and American summits are going to be in June, African America in July, and North Africa in August. to finish with the global summit in the month of September. The topics of each regional forum will combine concerns and proposals from each region about the challenges of democracy in the world, but also particular challenges that are faced in each one of the geographies in particular. Because of the health conditions worldwide still remaining, we are foreseeing that the forums are going to be virtual, but if the conditions allow, we will have a mixed modality, including the global summit in September. I conclude emphasizing that the summit, which is being called today, is broad alliance of institutions of people from all the world, is part of the conviction of the need to renew the global democratic pact. And this would not be the final point, but the starting point of a route allowing us to strengthen and renew electoral democracy in the different regions of the world. Thank you very much for your attention. And now we give the floor to the words of the positions of those from this position. I first give the floor to our dear friend Kevin Casas Zamoro, General Secretary of International IDEA. Please, Kevin, go ahead. Thank you very much. I want to thank, on behalf of IDEA International IDEA, and myself, all the organizations that have merged in this Electoral Democracy Summit, or Summit for Electoral Democracy. I want to thank the National Electoral Institute of Mexico, the Council of President Lorenzo Córdoba, and our good friend Manuel Carrillo, who have been those who have created this effort. The problems that democracy faces this day are many and complex, the more complex in the last century. One of the one of most concern is the work of some institutions trying to question elections through the use of claims of electoral fraud without evidence. This is something that has become urgent and global. This is particularly concerning in Latin America, in which the consolidation of electoral processes believable and robust has been the most important achievement of the democratic journey in the last 4 decades. This was a region in which the power was resolved in the military cartels or in other places. In Latin America, the only acknowledged way by everybody to legitimate access power is the electoral means. That we have to protect that at all costs, and we have to protect that now, because we are seeing that in some countries of the region, there are clear attempts from some governments and political forces to weaken the independence and credibility of electoral authorities that have proven to be competent and honest in the exercise of their sacred roles. In order to tell our unconditional support for the electoral authorities that protect confidence in the exercise of vote. That's where we are in this summit. And to say that it's not in the mouth of the illuminated prophets, as popular as they are, where we're going to listen to the voice of the people, but in the humble ritual of counting each vote in a transparent, credible, and honest way, which is precisely what the electoral authorities do in a democratic system. Thank you very much. Thank you for your words, Kevin. Now I give the floor to General Secretary of the Organization of American States, Mr. Luis Almagro. Please, Mr. Almagro. Thank you, Lorenzo. Thank you for this invitation, for the opportunity to talk to you. The member states of the OAS have adopted democracy as an essential element of stability, peace, security, and the development of the region. Nevertheless, regardless of numerous progress, we have many challenges ahead of us. In the last years, we have seen efforts to cloud the electoral efforts through misinformation campaigns, attacks directed to the electoral authorities, unfounded accusations of all kinds. These strategies are worrisome because that reduce confidence in the citizens, in the electoral institutions, and the legitimacy of electoral processes. We are convinced that democracy doesn't happen or strengthen just by itself. It needs work, permanent work, and in the OAS we do that to improve the conditions of electoral competition We have to strengthen the capabilities of the electoral organizations of the region. In this way, we try to contribute to the people of the Americas to exercise a right to for free elections. Electoral authorities have a constant work, and those are the ones that, even facing adversity, the global sanitary crisis, allow each citizen to express their opinions or political reject through the polling stations. We need to strengthen electoral institutions, reinforce their technical capacities, and defend their autonomy, and that is essential for democracy. The electoral processes, with no exception, must be led in an environment that free of pressures from the authorities responsible of organizing them. In the OAS, we believe in multilateralism. That is why we are happy to be part of this summit. We think that this meeting is going to create a plural and constant dialogue that will allow to find solutions to the common problems that democracy faces. We want to thank the tireless work of all the institutions of that work on the defense of the democracy. We have to restate uh, the commitment of the organizations to defend democracy in our hemisphere and to strengthen each electoral processes in our hemisphere. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. General Secretary. Now I give the floor to Corinne Momavanian, Executive Director of Kofi Annan Foundation. Please, Corinne.
Thank you, dear friends. I think from what the previous speakers have said, we already all agree that we're living through a challenging time for democracy. In nearly every region of the world, there are countries drifting towards authoritarian rule, suffering after military coup. And yet democracy, and Kofi Annan reminded us tirelessly of this, remains the system best suited to deliver development, human rights, security, and peace, importantly. And we are seeing right now the effect of strongman's policy and authoritarian rule on war, including in Europe. So despite the challenges, people still want democracy. They want to know who they choose to, who they are governed by, how, and they want these governments to be accountable. Free and fair elections is at the heart of this democratic system. So the role of electoral management bodies, electoral tribunals, and all such institutions is critical. But these institutions are coming under attack, as Kevin has already said. At the Kofi Annan Foundation, we've been involved in several elections where either incumbents or sometimes opponents have tried to influence or hijack electoral management bodies. That we've seen cases where these bodies are starved of resources or victims of disinformation campaigns, which decrease the trust that citizens have in them. And as Maria Ressa, Nobel Peace Prize winner, recently said at an event that we organized in Geneva, she said, without trust, we have no shared reality, no rule of law, no democracy. So it is so important to maintain the trust in electoral management bodies. So building, protecting competent, professional, well-resourced, independent electoral management bodies should be a priority for all of us. This Summit for Electoral Democracy convenes an impressive number of partners and expert participants. And I'm confident that together we'll deliver tangible steps and strategies to protect the electoral institutions on which healthy and sustainable democracies rely. So I really want to thank the National Electoral Institute of Mexico for this initiative. And I wish all of us very good proceedings. Thank you so much.
Mil gracias por tus palabras, Corín. Doy ahora el
Thank you for your words, Corinne. I'm going to give the floor now to our dear friend Joseph Thompson, Executive Director of Inter-American Institute of Human Rights. Please, Joseph, go ahead. Thank you, Lorenzo. Well, thank you also to INA in general, to the team for the initiative that really has called us, all of us, in a topic that there's no question is very important. from the Inter-American Institute of Human Rights in San Jose, Costa Rica, we share the central importance that electoral democracy topics have. This institute was created, the Electoral Promotion and Institute, after the institute was created, and was fortunate because Latin America started to go back to democracy after authoritarianism was prevailing in the region. 40-something years when the institute was created, only 3 countries in the region really fulfilled the conditions to be called a democracy. Today, democracy prevails in Latin America. And we have felt that we were able to be together with this process to recover democracy in the region, thanks to our closeness with the electoral authorities, the electoral organizations. We have believed in strengthening the capabilities and the exchange between electoral organisms. And thanks to that, we created in this region of the world the first association of electoral organizations, the Tikal Protocol of 1985, followed by the Quito Protocol for South America in 1987, and finally, with the broadest of the associations in this part of the world, the Inter-American Union of Electoral Institutions in 1991. And this has allowed us to create conferences, spaces, dialogues, a flow of cooperation in a horizontal way, hundreds of international observation missions, and nevertheless, regardless of knowing what has been invested in democracy in the region, the fundamental that is the existence of democracy for human rights and for its own preservation. We are starting to see attacks to electoral institutions. We are starting to see lack of confidence in democracy, and some of them have resuscitated the word fraud very also often. So we salute this initiative. Let's join together in a common language of democracy from all the continents and to preserve what we have achieved to potentiate it even more. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joseph. Now I'm going to give the floor to Sol Soloki, former General Secretary of ACEEO. So please go ahead.
Dear colleagues, my name is István Áhi. I am the program manager of the Association of European Election Officials. Unfortunately, Secretary General Zsolt Szolnoki couldn't be present today at the launch of the summit, but he sends his warm greetings to all the participants. In the beginning of this year, INE Mexico has asked the Secretariat of the ACEEO to organize the European event of this series, and we gladly agreed to fulfill this request. We would not have thought in the early 90s that election management bodies still face grave challenges in the 2020s. Even in Europe, democracy is on decline and autocracies are spreading due to the mass flow of disinformation and propaganda. There are also other challenges in terms of political pressure, lack of trust, security concerns, just to mention some. In these troublesome times, meaningful dialogue between election officials is needed more than ever. The Global Summit is a great opportunity to strengthen cooperation between election officials. The European event will take place on 8th and 9th June in Budapest and will focus on 4 timely themes related to elections, namely populism, electoral integrity, social media, and freedom of expression, and last but not least, civic education. We invite all the interested participants and stakeholders to this hybrid event. Our Secretariat considers the Global Summit a great initiative, and we hope that we lay down the foundations of a new tradition and that the summit will take place, will take place in the coming years as well. Because as one of our friends from the electoral field once said, there is no such thing as electoral nirvana. We hope we have to work for free and fair elections constantly. Thank you very much.
Gracias a ti, István, por tus palabras. Le doy ahora...
Thank you very much, István, for your kind words. Now I would like to give the floor to Antonio Garastazu, Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean of the International Republican Institute, IRI. Please, Antonio, go ahead.
On behalf of the International Republican Institute, it's a pleasure for us to be here and take part in the launching of the Electoral Democracy Summit. Dr. Cordova, it's a pleasure to see you. Thank you for the invitation and for your team for all the hard work, as well as all the other organizations in really putting together this very, very timely and important, crucial, I would say, summit for the democracy. We are today in support and in recognition of the role that really strong, independent, credible, and really unquestionable electoral authorities play in the revival of citizens' interest in participatory democracy. You know, part of the problems in our democracies are going through is precisely this lack of participation, as too few voters are going to the urns, leaving the field open to democratic distortions. You know, this takes us to examine the role of electoral authorities. They not only have to guarantee that every single vote counts, but also that citizens trust that their votes will count. But the responsibilities do not stop there. They too must be given the responsibility to the enfranchised, ensuring that women, indigenous peoples, youth, and other marginalized populations have the same opportunities to participate. So the role of authorities does not finish with an election. Every election really leaves lessons learned on how to improve the following one. For example, INE in Mexico has been working very, very hard to level the playing field for all. It is remarkable, for example, that the constitutional total parity mandate implemented by INE resulted in over 51% of the total candidacies held by women in the most recent gubernatorial election. It also helped fix quotas for indigenous people, Afro-Mexicans, immigrants, handicaps, and other groups. This is the way to go. You know, we come here today concerned by attacks of some electoral authorities around the world and what they're going through, in some cases, whether that means through budget cuts or other attempts to control the institutions. Today, more than ever, we really need to make sure that these attempts fail. And as we aim to help rebuild the luster of democracy in the face of an ever-demanding and growing electorate, we need to protect the integrity of electoral authorities as they are the cornerstone of democracies. That is why we're here today, and we really stand in unison with the Electoral Summit for Democracy. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, Antonio. Le doy ahora la
Thank you very much, Antonio. Now I would like to happily give the floor to the chair of IFES, Anthony Bambury. Please, Anthony, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, perhaps good evening to some. It's very nice to be with you today. Warm greetings and many thanks to President Councilor Lorenzo Cordova and all my good friends at the Council of the National Electoral Institute of Mexico. I'd also like to extend my warm greetings to Secretary General Luis Almagro of the OAS and other friends who are gathered here today, including Kevin Casas from IDEA, Corinne Momovanya, my old friend from the UN, who's now at the Kofi Annan Foundation, as well as my partners and friends from IRI and NDI, and all the partners who have gathered here today for this important conversation. I want to extend a special warm greeting and thanks to all our dear friend Manuel Carrillo, head of the International Affairs Unit at INE, and his team. Manuel has played such an important leadership role in the work of INE in the international sphere for so long, and I know I'm very grateful, and my colleagues at IFES are very grateful to him for that partnership. The National Electoral Institute of Mexico, INE, as we all know, has consistently shown its commitment to delivering inclusive and transparent elections, as my friend from IRI was just talking about, for one of the world's largest democracies. And INE has continued to do so successfully with this most recent, last year's midterm federal elections, 2 consecutive popular consultations, which presented a special set of challenges. And now INE is getting ready to hold the state-level elections in 6 states next month. This commitment to inclusive elections is underpinned by INE's passion for cultivating and sharing its global expertise and its expertise with a global audience, all of us, as well as its commitment to innovation in electoral administration. We have all benefited, certainly myself and my colleagues at IFES have benefited greatly from INE's facilitation of profound, deep dialogue and deliberation on the status of democracy and election administration. And this forum today is an excellent example of INE's contribution in this area. Today's forum touches on a very important, though we all recognize unfortunate reality. Democratic backsliding and systematic attacks against the autonomy and independence of election management bodies. This is happening in many countries around the world. We are all acutely aware of it. And unfortunately, INE itself has been subjected to what I certainly consider unjust political pressures. I'm glad we are all gathered here today to discuss the important subjects of this forum, but also as a way to show our strong solidarity with INE and its mission. Recently, an electoral reform bill, so-called reform bill, was submitted to the Senate in Mexico for debate. This bill proposes eliminating the current INE and replacing it with a new organization. Of course, it will be up to Mexican legislators to decide on this issue, but I hope and I would urge them to consider carefully the importance to Mexico's democratic future of strong and trusted institutions such as the INE, which does enjoy strong support from the voters and population of Mexico. Advances in election administration in Mexico did not happen overnight. They were the result of many years of hard work by INE. And the INE has, through its work, earned worldwide recognition and respect, which has and continues to serve as an example and model for many other countries, not just in Latin America, but indeed across the globe. Polarization leads to nowhere. Institutions such as the INE, strong independent institutions critical for democracy, must be preserved, respected, and strengthened, not undermined. In closing, I certainly look forward to future opportunities to collaborate with the INE and its team and on new efforts to contribute to our shared goal of promoting and defending democratic rights, inclusive elections, electoral integrity, based on our formalized cooperation mechanisms, but also, most of all, our common trust, friendship, and shared values. Lastly, I would like to again just extend my thanks and greetings to Manuel Carrillo and very much to our dear friend Lorenzo, whom I hope to see soon and look forward to many years of collaboration with in the future. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Anthony. Un gusto escucharte.
Thank you very much, Anthony. It was a pleasure to see you again. Now, I would like to give the floor to Andrew Rudman, Wilson Center's Mexico Institute Director. Please, Andrew, the floor is yours.
Let me add to the congratulations to INE, to Presidente Consejero Lorenzo Cordova and Manuel Carrillo for their leadership in bringing together institutions around the world in support of democracy. We're so pleased to have been invited to join this initiative and to collaborate with all of you here this morning. The Woodrow Wilson Center was created by the United States Congress as a tribute to the 28th President, Woodrow Wilson. President Wilson considered democracy to be a safeguard for world peace, and to that end, he was an advocate for open and inclusive dialogue, transparent and accountable processes, and reliable and effective institutions. Since its founding in 1968, the Wilson Center has served as a nonpartisan forum to convene various viewpoints and conduct independent research that can help leaders tackle some of the world's most pressing issues, including the stability and strength of electoral bodies across the world. With that spirit, and in response to the democratic wave that enveloped the Western Hemisphere in the 1980s, the Wilson Center's Latin America program was created with a commitment to analyzing the region's changing political landscape and potential trajectory. Roughly 20 years ago, the Mexico Institute was established to contribute proactive and pragmatic ideas catered to Mexico's unique history to inform policies, including in relation to Mexico's own democratic transition. Consistent with President Wilson's vision, the Mexico Institute recognizes that a healthy democracy requires high levels of transparency, accountability, inclusion, and consensus to maintain order, popular representation, and above all, domestic and international peace. Sustaining these pillars largely hinges on transparent electoral processes that are managed by a reliable and efficient electoral body. Civic participation is an essential component of the scaffolding that builds and strengthens democracy. However, its efficacy is predicated on accountable institutions that protect and implement the public will, and alongside a culture that enables and respects the rule of law. As such, democratization becomes a skillful balancing act of synergizing processes, institutions, and ideals to deliver a functioning political system. Thank you, Presidente Consejero and your team for the opportunity to join you today, and thanks to all of you for being here.
Muchas gracias a ti, querido Andrew.
Thank you very much, my dear Andrew, for your kind words. Now I would like to give the floor to Henry Aiton, Executive Director of the United States International Center for Electoral Support.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Thank you very much. Thank you also to all the other partners who have accepted to join us here today. The United States International Center for Electoral Support has in the last few years engaged in providing technical support to EMBs in Africa, including organizing exchange programs between US EMBs, state and local EMBs, and African EMBs. It is by the virtue of this support and our long-term partnership with INE that we welcome the opportunity to participate and organize the Africa Continental Summit for Electoral Democracy that was scheduled for July 25th to 26th of 2022. The urgency and importance of this initiative cannot be overemphasized. Today, Africa is compounded by many coups immediately after elections in the last few years, including other forms of backsliding, which undermines trust in the electoral process and decades of hard work by election management bodies, national, regional, and international democracy promotion stakeholders in the continent. Election management bodies are more than ever before expected to deliver electoral services in very changing political environments, including dealing with climate issues, conflicts, and pandemics. The Africa Summit will bring together EMBs, practitioners from the academia, civil society, parliaments, and women electoral advocacy networks within the continent to brainstorm on a way forward in the midst of ongoing changing challenges to promote and sustain electoral democracy in the continent. We take the opportunity again to thank INE for this initiative, and we look forward to meeting you all in September for the Global Forum. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias a ti, Henry. Salud.
Thank you very much, Henry. And yes, I am sure we will meet in September, and I will be very happy to see you. Now I'd like to give the floor to Richard Klein, Global Elections Director from the NDI. Please, Richard, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with such an esteemed group of individuals this morning. And I'd like to commend the INE for bringing us all together and taking the lead on the Summit for Electoral Democracy. Let me send greetings from NDI's president, Derek Mitchell, who unfortunately is unable to join us today, but who is following this process closely, as well as Deborah Ulmer, our director for Latin America and the Caribbean. Let me also say that at this time, NDI is still in mourning the loss of our chair, former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. But I want people to know that she was aware of this initiative and was a great supporter of this process. In addition, Senator Tom Daschle, who is our current chair, is following events closely, and we will be updating him at our board meeting next week on this initiative. Let me also say that NDI is honored to have a long history of working with the INE, in particular, important events that brought together election management bodies with international observers and citizen observers to find common ground and to understand better the different roles that these different groups play in the electoral process. As has been said by many speakers, electoral democracy is under threat around the world. These are challenging times. At the same time, I think it's important for all of us to remember that citizen demand for democracy and for credible elections remains very high. That while credible EMBs like the INE are under threat, that citizens in fact want and demand credible elections. This phenomenon that we are seeing is a global phenomenon, as I mentioned, that, credible EMBs around the world are under threat, that they are seeing their independence and autonomy and impartiality threatened, and at the same time, spurious claims are made to reject credible results that are the product of credible election management bodies. At this moment, when democracy and credible elections are under threat around the world, it is critical that the global elections community comes together and stands with credible election management bodies such as the INE that are committed to doing their job impartially and professionally. NDI looks forward to participating in both the regional and global summits for electoral democracy, including the event in September, and contributing to the global effort to support credible election management bodies, as well as more inclusive, transparent, and accountable elections. Thank you again for this important initiative, and we look forward to working together. Thank you.
Muchas gracias a ti, Richard, por tus palabras.
Thank you, Richard, for your kind words. And of course, we have to work together to continue to strengthen democracy globally. Now, I would like to give the floor to Luis Martinez Betanzos, Regional Electoral Advisor for the UNDP for the Arab States. Thank you very much, Lorenzo. First of all, I would like to thank the INE and Lorenzo Córdoba for this very timely summit. I'd also like to thank Manuel Carrillo and all his team for his leadership. Of course, it is an honor to be here with such important personalities, and just like Lorenzo was saying at the beginning, the goal is not the summit, but the summit should lead us to the next steps. I think it is obvious and it is sad to see and to hear people from different corners of the world that we all agree that democracy is being attacked and that the EMBs, which represent the democratic principles and values, are also being attacked in each and every corner of the world, not only by the private sector. And I think that this initiative should give us a series of hints and clues to see what's happening. But of course, we all know that there are serious problems in democracies and electoral processes. And so we need to know what to do with this. We've talked about social media. It's something that we have to study more in depth. And we still don't have all the information, all the data to attack this, because social media can be very positive, obviously, but they are being used in a very negative way in a lot of electoral processes, questioning the integrity and transparency of different EMBs and different electoral processes. And well, right now, of course, I am representing the Arab states, and here we have severe problems when it comes to accepting democracy. We're not going backwards, but here in this region of the world, the democracy is still not widely accepted. So those would be my comments. Thank you very much. Thank you, Luis. And now I would like to give the floor to Seung Ryul Kim, advisor to the General Secretary of the Association of World Elections Bodies, AWEB. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. My name is Seung Kim. I'm working for the Secretariat of AWEB as the advisor to the Secretary General. I'm very happy and honored to be joining this launching event of the Summit for Electoral Democracy. I'm very grateful to National Electoral Institute of Mexico for inviting the AF Secretariat to be a co-leader of the European Regional Forum, as well as giving me this great opportunity to say a few words on this special occasion. I would like to briefly mention some challenges that EMBs across the world have in common and to emphasize the importance of international cooperation in overcoming those challenges. First of all, low participation of voters is a great challenge. Voters disappointed with the political efficacy, they do not want to go to vote, which weakens legitimacy of election results. Second, the spread of fake news is nearly out of control. Third, extreme political polarization leads to electoral violence and hatred toward a particular group of people. Another big challenge is issues surrounding the neutrality and independence of EMBs. I'm quite sure those important challenges will be discussed sufficiently during the regional and global forum. AWEB is a universal body comprising 190 member EMBs from 109 countries. It is a valuable network for EMBs across the world, trying to find solutions to the common challenges faced in election management. Being a co-leader of the European Regional Forum and the Summit for Electoral Democracy, the AEF Secretariat is committed to the success of the event, as well as to strengthening electoral democracy, both on a regional and global level. AUF will save no efforts to identify common challenges and facilitate exchange of information and experience by various means. Once again, I would like to thank National Electoral Institute of Mexico for inviting the Secretariat of AUF to be a co-leader on this great occasion. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Seung Kim. Un gusto saludarte.
Thank you very much, Seung Kim. It is an honor to greet you, and it is a pleasure to have AWEB in this initiative. Now, I would like to give the floor our very good friend, Roman Jacquet, co-president of UNORE and president of the Central Electoral Board of Dominican Republic. Thank you very much, Lorenzo. We have seen how the independence of some EMBs in the region has been attacked. The actions against Latin American EMBs have been diverse, such as financial stranglehold, and also attacks have been made and even threats have been made regarding political proceedings because the EMBs have made decisions that are not favorable for certain political stakeholders. So the efforts to delegitimize these EMBs have been widespread, such as spreading misinformation to impact the credibility of democracy, and EMBs. All of the above has led us to a stage where we have gotten to the extremes and not just questioning electoral results, but the moral and physical integrity of men and women that are working in EMBs have been jeopardized by means of threats. So it looks like the narrative would stop there, but this is not the case. The new attacks have been focusing on the new electoral model in Latin America. And people have been questioning the success and transparency. And now a lot of countries are trying to eliminate EMBs and hold elections within the political spheres. And this would, of course, be an awful blow for not only for Latin American democracy, but for Latin American society. Finally, in this context, I would like to congratulate you for hosting this summit, because democracy is the only regime that can really protect the rights of each and every individual. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Roman. And now I give the floor and I give a warm welcome to Carlos Forcott from the Superior Electoral Court of Brazil. So Carlos, go ahead.
Good morning. First, on behalf of the President of the Brazilian Superior Electoral Court, Justice Edson Fachin, who unfortunately could not attend this meeting, I would like to congratulate INE and its President, Lourenço Córdova, for organizing this important summit. In 1932, Brazil enacted its first electoral code, by which the electoral justice system was created with its highest court, the Superior Electoral Court, as the country's management body. In these 90 years, despite episodes of authoritarianism, the history of the Brazilian electoral justice system has been one of constant improvement of our electoral proceedings, ensuring increasing peace and security in elections and stability to our democratic regime. In 2022, during the celebration of our 90th anniversary, Brazil will hold general elections in which the 149 million Brazilian voters will choose a new president, 27 governors, 27 senators, 513 federal representatives, and 1,059 state legislators. These elections, complex by themselves, take place in a sensitive context in which the electoral justice system has been facing different threats to the democratic regime and attacks on its integrity as an electoral management body. For example, we have experienced unfounded attacks on our electronic voting system, which for the past 26 years has flawlessly functioned, overcoming a history of electoral fraud. These threats, however, are not limited to our national experience, but are also present in other democracies around the world. The tenor of the attacks is repeated, and there is a need to jointly confront them. It's in this context that Brazil's Superior Electoral Court participates in this Summit for Electoral Democracy, certain that the sharing of experiences and mutual support among electoral management bodies are important tools for the democratic response to these threats. Brazil's Superior Electoral Court joins this summit with high hopes, pledging allegiance to the values that inspired its creation, which are the values of our electoral systems, of our democratic regimes, and ultimately are the core values of our freedom. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Carlos, por tus palabras y mucha
Thank you,
suerte.
Carlos, for your words, and a lot of luck in the organization of the biggest election in Latin America, which is going to take place in October this year. And speaking of elections, big elections, last but not least, I'm going to give the floor to Chandra Bhushan Kumar, Deputy Election Commissioner from the Election Commission of India, thanking him for his participation at this point in time and the eve of the biggest election in the world, the election in India. So, Chandra, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Honorable Lorenzo Cordova, INE, Honorable Justice Carlos from Superior Electoral Court of Brazil, distinguished participants from across the globe. At the outset, I would like to convey greetings and congratulations on behalf of our Election Commission for this very timely summit. It is a matter of privilege and pleasure for me to join you all at this momentous launching event for Summit for Electoral Democracy. We at ECI applaud the INE for taking this initiative in association with International IDEA, IFS, and other reputed international organizations and EMBs across the globe. ECI is happy to be associated with this initiative, which aims to promote institutional mobilization to strengthen electoral democracy in the world. Democracy has proven itself to be the best means to uphold human dignity, secure open access to the public for an equitable participation in the political process. It is through democracy that public resolves their disagreements and disputes through debate and persuasion. Democratic countries develop strong institutions, evolve and implement fair and predictable legal systems. India is both one of the oldest civilizations and the world's largest democracy. ECI has led the way to democracy during the last 70 years by conducting 17 general elections to the parliament and more than 395 elections to the provincial assemblies and elections to the offices of presidents and vice president in the country. With a large electorate of over 950 million, with diverse ethnicities, cultures, and social customs, beliefs, and challenging terrain in this vast country, conducting free and fair election has always been a challenge that ECI has successfully managed over these years. India is a very significant partner in the global effort towards a strengthening democracy and enhancing voter education and participation. ECI has always championed the need for international cooperation among democracies, nurtured steady collaborations, learning from each other, and sharing best practices and accumulated knowledge. ECI has felt the need to continuously engage itself and others in generating innovative ideas and practices to respond to the emerging challenges in election management, which fellow speakers have just highlighted. Since its genesis in 1950, ECI has been in the forefront of international organizations promoting the cause of democracy worldwide. India is currently holding the chair of the AWEB. We have recently taken over a chair of the 20-member Association of Asian Election Authorities. ECI is also a founding member and former chair of FEMBOSA, which is Forum of Electoral Management Bodies of South Asia. ECI has always advocated the need for international cooperation among democracies, building a steady collaborations, learning from each other, and sharing best practices. ECI is fully committed to enhance bilateral and multilateral cooperation in promoting participatory democracy and best practices in election administration, professional contact, and exchange activities, share its expertise in holding free and fair elections, provide technical support and advice to meet the challenges. In this endeavor, ECI look forward to actively participate in the Summit for Electoral Democracy and to host the Asian Regional Forum meeting in July 2022 as proposed. We again congratulate INE for hosting this very, very timely summit for the sake of global democracy. Thank you very much for inviting us.
Muchas gracias, Chandra.
Thank you, Chandra. Big success in the elections that is imminent now in India. Before giving the floor to Manuel Carrillo for to close the session and some announcement about the activities that we're going to be performing ahead, we're going to thank all of you, not only for your participation this morning, this afternoon, this day, but also to acknowledge the work of the electoral authorities that are emerging here, as well as the multilateral organizations, international organizations, not only because of their efforts, the work they have performed, and the commitment in the promotion and defense of the democratic conquest. As Chandra said right now in his participation, the objective of this collective effort is not only to reflect about the challenges of democracy in the electoral dimension, its strengths and opportunity areas, but also to detonate institutional mobilization to defend what Mr. Jose Ortega and Gasset defined as that minimum technical detail from which the existence and health of democracies depend, the electoral proceedings. Thank you very much to all of you. I give you my warm salute from Mexico, and I give the floor to close this event, this launching event of the Global Electoral Democracy Summit, Manuel Carrillo, Coordinator of International Affairs from the National Electoral Institute, to make the invitations and explain the steps to follow in this collective initiative. Thank you all. Warm salutes from Mexico. Manuel, go ahead. Thank you, Mr. President, Dr. Lorenzo Cordova. I thank also all those present here and all their teams to make this launch possible. Yes, in fact, this Democracy Summit, the role of electoral organizations in strengthening is a global movement to improve their performance in the electoral field. And like we said, this is an intellectual, cultural, political, and institutional and moral challenge. INE adds with all of you, joins with all of you. We are a collective, us. It are part of the organization together with you. INE can play a role of as a coordinator, technical support, gladly in the following regional meetings. I announced that we will start together with the Europe meeting 8th and 9th of June. We're going to have regional reports, and there's going to be a final report of the Electoral Democracy Summit by September. I also want to thank all the support from all of you, and we are all responsible to strengthen electoral democracy. Thank you very much. Very good day, very good afternoon. I send my best wishes to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Manuel. Big success. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Buen día a todos. En nombre de la Junta Central Electoral.